So hello, friends. My name is Hope Boykin, and I get to be here with this amazing creator, choreographer, Mr. Rennie Harris today. We are so excited because we get to continue to give you all access to everything Ailey through this digital platform. I know that these times are tough for us, and as we try to stay home as much as we can and stay safe, we wanted to make sure that we continue to bring you as much Ailey, as much dance, as much love as possible. Mr. Harris, I know that during these times it's a little tough, like this new life. I'm still calling it temporary, but how are you doing? You know, how's your body doing too?
I'm doing all right. I'm in my just about in my fourth week of recovery after my second hip replacement.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
when it's time for us to start doing
Yes.
stuff again, you'll be you'll be
Oh
back
yeah,
and
I'll be able
ready.
to demonstrate more. Hopefully, yeah, more. Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'm walking every day, so my gait and my walk is way better. The limp is gone.
Oh, it's amazing. So what happens is, on Thursdays, we bring a performance to our extended Ailey family on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Facebook. And this week, this Thursday at 7 o'clock, we are doing your Lazarus. Now, I have been able to be in 4 of the 4 ballets that you set and worked with on the company. So it was Love Stories, and you did that in collaboration with Miss Judith Jamison and Robert Battle. And
Mm-hmm.
then Home, I think, was next, and then
Mm-hmm.
Exodus, and then Lazarus, of course. And I'm really excited for our audiences to get to see that because our tour was cut short. We were leaving Iowa City on our way to Dallas, and then from Dallas, we were going to go to LA, and we were going to perform Lazarus
Oh wow.
at the Dorothy Chandler. And I'm just, a little sad that we can't do it, but at least our audiences will get to see it on Thursday night. Now, I've known you for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still keeping my youthful look. I hope, but but I know you're from Philly, and I know you started your dance company there, Rennie Harris Pure Movement. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started, dancing in general, and then putting a company together?
Well, dancing part is easy because it was cultural. Everybody, you know, dance, so that was a big deal. It wasn't until I guess I toured with the rap group and the first rap tour across the country called Fresh Fest with Run DMC, Fat Boys, Curtis Blow, and all those guys.
I saw that.
Oh, did you?
Came to North
Yeah,
Carolina.
yeah, uh-huh.
Oh
That
my
was
God.
yeah. I was one of the dancers in that. We were featured in this. So I started, commercially like in high school. And so right out of high school, went and did that for a while. Moved to New York, stayed in Soho, and then I wound up in Yonkers. And then after Yonkers, I came back to Philadelphia around '91. Someone commissioned me money to create my own work, and I created Rennie Harris Pure Movement. And so, I just started creating all kinds of stuff. Not unsure where it was coming from. It wasn't until like 95-ish or 95, 96, we happened to land a spot on IABD.
International
Performance.
Association of Blacks in Dance. Yeah.
Yes.
In a
Mm-hmm.
conference, right, in Philly.
Right. Yeah. Well, with Joan Myers Brown and, and so in any case, we performed, and right after that performance, someone said, "Hey, this guy, this really big guy, is looking for you. His name is Chuck Davis." And I was
Oh,
like,
Baba Chuck.
I was like, yes, I was like, "Who's that?" I had no clue. So when I walked into the reception, I saw him, and he was like, "Rennie Harris. When I call you, I will have the phone in one hand and money in the other."
Now,
Yeah. So, and that
I'll
was how
teach
I
you.
got around the world. Through Baba Chuck. We did Dance Africa America.
And that was your
Around the country, not around
first.
the world. That was the first as the company, as Rennie Harris Pure Movement, that we as a company got around for people to see us. Up until that point, we were just pretty much stuck in performing in Philly, Jersey, New York, that kind of thing.
Right, right. I don't know if you know this, but I've known him since I was about 10 or 11.
Oh
He's
wow!
friends with my dad.
Oh wow!
I would get an award and he would show up, and
Oh
just this
wow!
huge presence. And I understand what it must have been like to have him support you, because he supported me throughout, my career until his passing. And
yeah, he was massive. He, when we first went over to BAM, when it was like he was at the end of this hallway, and they had these golden gates that said BAM on it, and it was like going to see the Wizard of Oz. And me and the company manager are like walking, like, "Yo, this is crazy." He came out and he just like engulfed both of us at the same time. Like I was just like, oh,
Right.
So yeah, he was a massive influence in my life in regards to, how to get it done. He taught me one of the things he said, Rennie Harris, if your bow was raggedy, the whole show was raggedy. So as you know, I'm all about the bow. Making that thing work. Yeah.
And our audiences will know that when they see the bows for Lazarus, because woo-wee. So, how is it creating on companies other than companies that are based in street dance and house dance? I mean, you came in the first time with Love Stories and you created on us. And I've heard you say, let me teach them the movement and then see how it looks. How has it been in this time? Are you happy? Are you satisfied? I'm sure you're going to say you're satisfied, but do we make you feel proud to present your work?
It's interesting because I was so happy when I went back to do Lazarus that I pretty much had the same crew that I had, a crew of dancers that I had for Home, and then some from Love Stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be a crazy process. I got to do this, I got to do that, because it's often hard for me to translate what it is that I want people to do. And then for them to retain that information, that's the most important. Because like when I'm there, it look okay. I got it to a point. It looks good, and then you leave, you go back and go,
Mm-hmm.
And so I was so surprised and so impressed that the last time for Lazarus, I started doing, showing the movement, or I had the assistant show the movement.
Need a flag. Yes.
Yeah, and you guys were just knocking it out, and I was like, oh snap, y'all just pushed me. You know what I mean? Because now you're familiar with what I'm gonna do rhythmically, what I'm interested in.
Right.
As far as my version of house, how I see house movement, specifically from Philadelphia. And so you guys just spit that thing back to me, and I was just like, all right, game on.
Well, I will say that there are some of us who were at the, with you from the beginning, but there's also a love that you brought to us. And then we were able to hold on to all of the things as we shared it with newer company members. Mm-hmm. And we took pride in that. And, between Masazumi Chai at the time, and then, then rehearsal director, but now associate artistic director, Matthew Rushing, put a lot down on your work, because we wanted you to be proud. And that's part of it. That's part of being in a repertory company too, being able to maintain that work.
That was the thing. Like, I felt like one of my things is like, if you remember anything, if you remember heart, like you could be horrible, whatever it is, but if your heart is there, people are like, yo, that was amazing.
Right.
And that was the most important thing for me, where I expressed to you guys, like, I'm not creating the work just because I'm creating the work. I'm moved to create this work. I'm moved spiritually in a whole other way. And I don't know what that is. You know what I mean? I don't know why, that information. I do, you know what I mean? But, in the process of it, it's coming out, right? And you guys are allowing that to happen as physical historians. You hold the history of all the choreographers that have come before you, and all the choreographers who come in your time. That information is extremely important for society.
But you know what else too? You've given me a perfect transition to this other question I wanted to ask you, because in Lazarus specifically, I promise you, when we were just like, you had this way of creating movement, and we don't know what's going on. It's not our job to always know either. Masazumi Chaya always says the dancer's role is to be a vessel for the choreographer. Mm-hmm. And so you give us this movement, but your ideas are flowing, in the beginning. And when we first started to put Lazarus together, I looked over and I was like, he's just done 200 years of Black history from from Africa to slavery through civil rights in 2 minutes. I mean, it's longer than 2 minutes, but it felt like you did this like concise and succinct work like that. It's brilliant to me. And as a person who likes to make movement and likes to create dance, I was like, dang, I wouldn't have thought of that. How, what motivates you to make this work in that way?
I think, in the very beginning, when I started creating work on other companies, or even with my own dancers at times, you hear the whispers like, yeah, I don't think he knows what he's doing, or, some kind of thing like that, and for me, it's easier to create this vocab, the movement first, just go through creating all the movement possible, right? Meaning I find a particular texture of movement, like this is what I want for this particular moment, and I stay within that aesthetic and push that. And if the piece is 20 minutes, I make I'll make a 10-minute phrase, because out of the 10-minute phrase, I can cut that up and make it 20.
Right.
And then I layer drama. I try not to layer drama in the beginning because, my students know, don't ask me any questions. And I'm not going to tell you a lie, because I don't know what it is I'm doing in the moment. The vocabulary begins to tell the story to me. And I see, oh, this is, sometimes I'm innately doing it. And then sometimes I have a idea at night or I'm sleeping and I'm like, oh, and then that pushes these other ideas out. And you guys are really just brilliant at being just that look that you have on your face right now. Like, what's next? You know what I mean? Which is also scary, but it pushed me because as a choreographer, I don't want fear to run the space. I want love to run the space. I want you to feel me as much as I am feeling you. And that's what Ailey has been able to do when I come into set work. I feel supported, and when I'm supported, that's the limit is out the door. Right. Every choreographer, people ask me, what's the hardest part about doing choreography? It's the dancers. If I don't have attitude, if I have love, if I have just patience and just let me figure this thing out, because I don't know. I'm not a choreographer who can write it all down. And then I get stuck when you give me a script. You give me a script, you're not going to get the best work out of me. I will do it because it's a challenge. I'm like, oh, let me figure out. But I know it's not my best work because I'm scripted and I'm limited to what I really want to do. If you just say, hey, I want this piece, I think I may want it. You may be, around this topic. And then I don't, like Robert does. And I don't hear from him. I don't see him. I get lonely. Like, where, you see some of this stuff I'm doing? He just shakes his head like, okay, Rennie.
Well, he trusts you and we trust you too, And I'll say when you were talking about character and like building the context of the work, I'll never forget we were going over this one section and I knew you had explained my character to me. And then I was just kind of doing it because I was like, oh, this is going to cost me. I felt like it, like this role is going to cost me. And I knew, but I was just going to not phone it in, but I was going to just get through this diagonal, get through this migration. And then you caught my eye and you said, need to see the emotion. And I was like, daggone it. Because I wasn't ready to go there. Yeah. But I didn't have a choice because what you needed. And that day it opened me up. And you have given me a confidence in ways that I have not been able to explain to people. Because shedding that, I even tell my students, and I have to tell you a story about my students, but I have to tell my students that you unzip. And the more you unzip, the more you find out about yourself. And then the more available you are to the people in front of the room.
And that's part, I want to see 0 to 60. That's what inspires me. I want I want it until the body is exhausted. you have to say, I have to take a break because you know what I mean? I want to hear
Right.
that conversation with me because I want to know that, because then it tells me, oh, this is correct.
Mm-hmm.
You got me? And I also, your story, you know, I walk up over to you guys all the time and just have the conversation with you directly, because
Right.
everybody else is ear hustling, and then somehow they may think that that pertains to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what I'm like, your line is your line. That's it. You killed this lane, and that's the lane that you're in. And I'll be over to the other person to tell them what I think they should do specifically to draw this out. And it's really about, I mean, it's without you, I'm nothing.
Well, you know, and then the way you set things up often too, and I remember really in the beginning, you would take us through the hardest part of the day, which was like the workshopping, or otherwise known as from the very beginning, because we were stripped down. You know, there were so many things we didn't know. Why is it so important for you to be clear about the origins of street dance? I mean, I know we put our hands in our pockets for certain things. I mean, as soon as you gave us, you know, one movement to the next, you were telling us why we were doing it, when that came about, what city that was from. Mm-hmm. Why is that important? I mean, I know why it's important to me, but.
Mm-hmm. Well, historically, you know, often I found that people just think hip hop has no history. And so the movement across board, people are teaching stuff in studios and they call it the hip hop, when really it's just jazz with, you know, isolation of jazz with some rapper attitude, right? And a lot of times they're using movement and they don't understand where that movement came from. It's important, like in where I come from, you do a certain move that means something that could be detrimental to your health. You understand? And so, you know, I always felt that when I choreograph with my own dancers as well, even though they're from it, I contextualize it still to say, hey, this is what it is. This is why this person did this. If it has a history, I'm going to tell it. And especially with dancers who are not from my genre, right? Because it had the same way that we understand about, you know, Isadora Duncan, you know, Catherine Dunham, like, and all the history, you know what I mean? Denishon, Tedishon, like, you know what I mean? Like,
all of it. From
like how that genre understands that history and why that is important. Horton and what that meant for a particular group of folk, right? It's the same thing here, why people have to understand why street dance movement, whether it's locking, popping, breaking, hip hop, house, trendy, second line vogue, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and I've gotten to the, you know, crumping and hyphy and light feet and all the different styles of street dance, right? Those things mean something and they came out of something, because movement is the last manifestation of your reality. Mm-hmm. So how we move is the final manifestation of reality based on what was going on politically, economically, and socially at that time. You got me? So we stand a certain way now because we hear our posture is defined by what's happening politically, economically, and sometimes by way of religion, right? And so our movement, our physical movement, represents a particular era. And if I'm giving you movement from the 70s that, you know, I lived through, then I want you to understand why the breakdown was this major thing. You know what I mean? Like why that was, yo, you don't even understand. This was the song, and this is why, and this is what was happening when this happened. You know what I mean? And so I think that's very important. And only in you know, I feel like with African Americans and our history, you know, we get this sense, we always get this thing like, well, it's not, it's a feeling, it's a this, it's a that, as if it's not intelligent, as if it hasn't, you know, history, you know, and we're always being described as, you know, energetic and acrobatic and passionate and all these things which suggest, you know, emotion, right? Which then suggests non-intelligence in a way, right? Like, because we this is how we communicate. Now, be that as it may, whether it is, it doesn't define us as a whole, and the intelligence is within the movement itself and where it comes from. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
history. And so anyway, long story short, that's why I explain it. That's why I make sure you understand that this is a jack rhythm. All right, jack rhythm. This was this. It was a sexual dance at first, or it was that, or it was that. And so you're clear about what it is you need to replicate as the physical historian. That's important.
You know what else is great? And now, you know, being a part of this company for 20 years, being able to travel the world, and I mean some of everywhere. I think I can count on, you know, two hands where I haven't been. And knowing that I go to all these different cities and what music, what style of dance, what's playing on the radio, what's on television is always there, is some form of what our history has been. And it's amazing to me. It really is.
And how it and how that geographically, when we were on tour, like for commercially, right? We go to Detroit, say, and we hook up with, like, you know, we've been in a hotel, and we always talk to people who work there, like, yo, where's the parties at? What's the so and so? And they would turn us on to that, and then we'll ask them, what's the dance out here? And they would show us the hot dance, or we'll see it at the club, and then we'll take that dance from Detroit and put it into our show, right? Because that voice is very much Detroit,
right.
You know what I mean? And that's important, and those movements are important, and why there's a history behind that. So extremely important.
And the other thing that's interesting about the way you work, especially with Lazarus, is you did something that I had not heard from someone who wasn't, you know, I guess wasn't built up in the organization, and that was using Mr. Ailey's voice within your work. And so by the time you got to a place in the ballet, you know, especially, you know, at the closer to the end, and you were asking him questions as if he were right there. That meant so much to me, because as a person who wants to continue his legacy, even though I didn't know him, I know him because of Miss Judith Jamison, because of Masazumi Chaya, because of Renee Robinson, because of the people who knew him, Sarita Allen. I feel like I'm able to know him, but you brought him to the stage. And what I think you should know is that when I'm out and when I'm teaching, and just recently on a Zoom call, I mentioned your name, and one of these students, just like he lit up. He was like, wow, it's great to know that Rennie Harris is a real person, that he's regular, that he's approachable. And I'm thinking to myself, look, already you've set yourself in this place, or circumstances have put you in a place that you are continuing, you're building up your legacy, but then you're adding to this Baba Chuck, to Alvin Ailey, to Judith Jamison. And that's just, to me, far greater than anything else. You know, like I was like, oh yeah, I know him. He's a friend of mine. That made me feel really, really good. So what do you want audiences who haven't seen Lazarus to take away from when we screen it? I call it the watch party, the Alvin Ailey watch party on Thursdays at 7.
Right. Well, you know, I would say turn off all the lights. You know, get your popcorn.
Right.
Really, because it's something to receive receive feeling and drama from technology, right? And so let's help that.
Right.
You know, get it ready. You know, don't have your other devices out. Really, just be open to the space. And I just want people to, you know, get a sense of spirit continuing. I want people, like, the idea that, you know, our issues are our issues, and they will continue, in my opinion, to kind of be here to help us learn as spirits on the planet. You know what I mean? Like, the reason we die is so that we can make room for other spirits to come here and have this amazing experience. Right. And so while we're here, we need to acknowledge who we are as spirits on the planet, and go through all those experiences we're willing to go through, and enjoy and learn. And I think this is about spirit traveling through time. This is about your life, you know, your cycle, you know, coming through time as a spirit on the planet.
You know, just like totally made me emotional. I wasn't expecting it. But when I think about it, every time we do a work, of yours in a specific time, you know, with Exodus and gun violence, and we were performing this work, and I believe it might have been Orlando's club shooting happened, and then, you know, we were listening to all of this, and then the curtain goes up, and there I am mourning over this body. I was done, because as artists, we are relevant, and we are showing the truth in it. And I think that Lazarus does that. And I appreciate you for being transparent and being open and giving us the chance. And, you know, now that we have these live DJ parties that we all love, you should see me in the house doing all my stuff that I learned. I just bring it from, you know, I feel like I'm still staying hip. Right, because I know your choreography, so I can just do your choreography wherever I go. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Rennie, and thank you to our extended Ailey family. Again, you tune in to, like I said, this global Ailey watch party, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard on Thursdays. We are just so happy to continue to bring dance to you. Mr. Ailey said dance comes from the people. It should be delivered back to the people, and that's what we want. We want to invite you into our hearts as we continue to love and heal our world. And thank you to our first responders and our people on the front lines, because we could not do it without you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rennie. I appreciate you.